Hi everybody, Beige here for another video this week. This is going to be part 2 of our multi-part gear series, which I don't know how long it's going to be going, but today we're going to be discussing belts. If you haven't watched part 1, that video was released last week and that's our chest rig video, so please take a look at that one because a lot of the similar philosophies in that video are going to go into this one. Belts are likely going to be the thing that you get after chest rigs, and your guns of course and everything you need to play. So a lot of people just run belts at Siege, which I think is a great option. Belts can be awesome if you're really wanting to go super light, really prioritizing mobility and speed, and of course calling your hits and feeling every shot. Belts are also really good for certain milsim operations that we run at Siege where you have to play a different role. So for example, last year right before we closed, we had a milsim called Operation Advent, and I was playing as kind of a mad scientist doctor person, and I just wore a belt and hid a pistol underneath the lab coat, so belts were really good for that. Like with chest rigs, my previous statement on gear applies. Make sure you take care of all your airsoft needs before looking into your LARPy needs. Nobody here is really super GMR elite, so you won't be rappelling over anything or anything like that. So you probably won't need harnesses or that fancy stuff. Make sure, of course, that you have your mags, if you're using a sidearm, a holster for your sidearm, and any other essential pouches. For me, belts are a first-line kit item, so that means they contain just the essentials of what I would need. So in order to determine what your essentials are, look at the games and the events you're attending. At Siege, games tend to only be between 10 and 20 minutes long, so that, as my framework, is how I'm going to be setting up my kit. So a few rules I tend to stick for my belts. First is the belt itself. I tend to like my belt to be kind of on the stiffer side. That way, if I'm carrying pouches or any load on the belt, it doesn't collapse in on itself. Also, be aware that typically, unless you're running a suspender or harness style system, most modern gun belts are only going to be supported by your pelvis only. So for me, I like to carry a single layer of pouches, like all of the belts on the table around me used by our staff members here. That means I don't like to put more pouches than necessary, so I don't like to stack a pouch on top of a pouch on top of a pouch, because my hips can't really support as much weight as, let's say, a chest rig or a plate carrier. And if I'm bumping into things, having a lot of stuff in my hips kind of makes that pretty difficult if I need to get close to cover or I need to get down. So for today, as an outline, we're going to be referring to the positions of pouches on a belt by using a clock system. So the buckle where your crotch is, this is going to be the 12 o'clock. So this would be a 3, a 6, and a 9, and so on and so forth. Hoping you guys can read analog clocks out there. Sorry to all my Zoomers out there who only read digital, but that's how we're going to be referring to these guys today. Onto the belts that I have with me today. I have some examples of these 2-layer belts over here around me, and I have an example of a rigger's belt, or a simple EDC belt. This belt was made by Persec Gear, as was this one. Big shout out to him. He makes awesome stuff. He's locally in Toronto based. Great dude, has been making stuff for me and my guys for a long time. Support local if you can, guys. It really helps out the community. This one he doesn't make anymore, I believe, and this was his EDC belt, although most belts will work fine, so this can apply to a simple leather belt if you don't have the budget to buy anything too fancy. And this is just going to have pouches clipped on to the side over here. These pouches and this holster actually were made by Airsoft Collective, another really great local dude that plays here, and he makes pretty awesome Kydex stuff. So for this belt, I like to keep it really simple. Sometimes I just want to run this when I don't want to run anything else, and I just put this, these pouches on my pants when I'm playing, especially if I'm having a range day. This is a simple little AK pouch that I run on the 3 o'clock over here, or sorry, the 9 o'clock, my bad, I'm getting confused here. And this just fits an AK mag. And over here is a simple Kydex Glock holster. And this will just fit a Glock, and it clicks in really positively. The advantage of using these kinds of belts is they tend to be cheaper because they don't have any MOLLE or any fancy systems with them. They also tend to be something that you already have if you have a leather belt. The big disadvantage I find with these belts is not so much the pouches and the support, because you're not typically going to be running a lot of pouches on these kinds of things, but it's more so the ease of putting pouches on and off. Because these go inside your belt loops just like normal belts, the pouches sometimes can slide around if they're not super tight or shimmed with Velcro or something like that, which can be a problem unless you have your belt loops kind of to prevent them from moving. But that's kind of the difficult thing sometimes, is because when you put pouches over your belt loops, it's really annoying to don on and off, where you have to kind of clip your pouches in, clip your holster in every time you want to take off your belt, put on your belt. So I don't prefer this belt for normal airsofting. It's more of like a quick fix kind of thing for me. So this goes on to my preferred style of belt, which is going to be the 2-layer kind of gunfighter belt system. This again is a Persec Gear belt. This one I believe is his Sierra V1. I believe he's on the second version now, and he has kind of different variations of it. This belt is really awesome because it kind of combines the best of the traditional big war belts with the convenience of these tiny little rigger or EDC belts. These belts operate on a 2-layer system. So I'm going to take out the inner layer. It's going to be kind of loud because of Velcro. Big snake. So this is the inner layer, and typically these will be just some sort of Velcro layer. For this one, this is loop Velcro on this side, and this part goes inside your pant loops. Some different brands and stuff like that will have different ways of attaching this. For this one, it just kind of Velcros on itself. So this is the loop. The outer belt is going to be the interesting part because this is where all your gear goes. Now this goes over that loop, so it rides over your belt loops on your pants. And that's pretty awesome because you don't run into the problem of having to loop your pouches through your belt loops. You kind of have everything on here just like a battle belt, but you have the advantages of this by having it just kind of stand your hips, and because it's Velcroed on, if you move around and twist around, it doesn't rotate or move on you. It just is on there via friction. So these stiff belts are made of resin impregnated nylon, so they're really, really stiff. If I were to try to bend this with my hands, I can barely do it, especially when you have the inner belt on, which is made of the same material. So it's kind of like a rigid, awesome gear carrying donut around your waist. So this belt I've been using actually for the better part of about 3 years now. It's seen very little variation over the years, and the reason I bring that up is because, guys, you don't really need to get the latest and greatest thing every time. The design of this, while there's like newer belts out there that have slight improvements, hasn't really changed too much. And use your kit, guys. Don't just be buying new stuff just to be a diva. Use your stuff, practice with it, get used to it, replace it when it breaks, or if you find something that is genuinely better. So on to what I have on this belt. Most of these belts, as you see on the table, are going to be affixed with these Cobra buckles. While they also look cool, they're a really cool way of attaching and taking off your belt. They support a lot of weight around them, and they click in, and it's pretty simple. I typically don't like to use plastic buckles because they're strong, but because this belt can see a lot of stress over time, the metal buckle generally is a bit more rigid. These are pretty sweet. Generally, for a belt setup, I like putting pouches mostly on the 3 and 9 o'clock and very little stuff on the rear, and you'll notice that is a trend for most of our staff here. This is Aaron's belt, and this is Max's belt over here, because we tend to keep the rear relatively bare. And that's because if you're a normal human being, your hands generally go to your sides, and that's an easy place to access kit. Just like on your chest rig or your plate carrier, it's easy to access kit from the front and much harder to access it from the back. This is especially true for belts, as they tend to ride lower, so you don't have too much leverage when you're pulling stuff out of the back. So I generally don't recommend putting a mag pouch or something important you need back here. Keep the important stuff on the side, and the less essential stuff you can put on the backs or nearer to the 6 o'clock position. Also, when the stuff on the back is really loaded out, and this goes especially for guys running in vehicles, and if they need to sit down a lot, is, because we know you're all chair softers out there, is that if you have a lot of the stuff on the back over here, when you sit down, it tends to get in the way of where you're sitting. Over time, obviously, it can create some back problems, but if you're like laying down or you need to get low, the front generally for the belt isn't covered because you need to have your buckle there, but the back I generally leave it away, leave it plain, so that way nothing really obstructs your sitting or your laying. One thing that you've probably also noticed on these belts is the lack of anything that goes on my leg or our legs. And the reason for that is generally I don't really like things on my leg, although that might have been something cool in more old school setups. Most of the times a lot of more modern setups run stuff just on the hip line. Maybe the leg has like a support strap or something like that. But big leg rigs, especially drop legs and stuff like that for pistols, aren't really too great, especially because they can't be adjusted super well and they tend to rotate around a person's leg. If it works for you, sure, great, go ahead, use it. I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm just saying they're not super optimal. I've seen a lot of people lose their pistols or have their pistols swinging at the front of their leg or the back or just kind of going 360 around their legs because they're not adjusted well. Same thing with the mags. I've seen people that run leg rigs that their mags kind of don't have the optimum placement all the time because their legs are moving around. So your hips don't move as much as your legs. So I like to keep everything just on my hips. Having a more consistent placement on your hips allows you just to have better times, better draws, better consistency with the way you practice and with the way you play. So we're gonna go over some of the pouches now. So this is my handgun holster. This actually isn't traditionally the handgun that I use. It's a Tokyo Marui Desert Eagle. It's pretty cool, but it's way too big for normal use. It's definitely just a showpiece here as an example. I am using a Warrior Assault Systems universal holster, and obviously this is mounted to my 3 o'clock because that is where I draw my handgun from. So this holster is really neat. It's kind of a combination of a soft and a hard holster. I typically don't recommend the old school soft holsters with like the button enclosures on top because they're hard to draw from. You need to defeat that button, and then if you want to reholster your pistol, you have to either redo the Velcro or redo the button, and I've seen a lot of pistols get lost in the field because of that. I typically recommend either a holster with some sort of active retention on it, like something that clicks in, or a really good Kydex holster like this one. If you want to see the click of this holster, you can see it right now. Clicks in nice, doesn't fall out. Just like with anything else, you can perform a little gear check by shaking your belt like this, just to make sure nothing falls out. And if nothing falls out when it's inverted, then you're probably good to go for when you're running. This holster relies on a little lock that locks in the trigger guard. Probably not going to go too much into holsters because there's way too many options out there, but most of our staff run a holster with some sort of lock. Or a really good retention Kydex holster, especially outdoors because you can have branches and stuff snag on you when you're crawling around. You don't want to be losing your pistol. Your pistol costs like $200, $300, $400. If you guys have race guns, they can cost like thousands of dollars, guys. Don't skimp out on the thing that's going to be holding the pistol to your body. If your pistol falls out and it breaks, especially on the super hard concrete floor of Siege, you're not going to have a good time. You might as well spend $60, $80, $100 on a nice holster to save your $200, $300, $400 pistol. So, like I said, this holster has a little thumb release over here, and if I press this thumb release, this Desert Eagle comes out. I like this holster because it fits everything. I'm actually probably going to switch over to my Glock in a bit. So I put my Glock back in just because this Desert Eagle is really big and it's kind of annoying to swing around. So as you can see, it also fits a TM G19 pretty nicely. In the front over here, I've attached a little HK clip over here via a piece of webbing through the molly. These just hold my gloves or any kind of clippables I want to put on there. Sometimes I put glow sticks on there. Sometimes I just actually put my barrel sock on there. Things like that. Nothing too fancy. These are just pig gloves. They're really awesome. Probably my favorite gloves. Video and gloves coming out in the future, but good stuff there. So on my 9 o'clock, where my support hand for my rifle is, are going to be my magazines. I tend to prefer, just like chest rigs, open top magazines. Especially for the belt. I can understand if you want to run bungee mags for the chest rig because you do have a lot of leverage over here to overcome the bungee or to open a flap, but on a belt, pretty awkward to do this or to move your bungees around, especially because you can't look there as easily and see where you're putting your stuff. So open top pouches are definitely recommended, especially because I consider my belt to be my speed reload platform. So if I really need to gas up my gun with a mag, I will reload from my belt, and I don't want anything getting in the way of that reload. Same thing with my pistol pouches over here. I typically tend to run pistol pouches just on my belt and on my rig because they're heavy, and because I like to keep my belt nice and slim, everything just kind of affords each other. So my pistol pouches over here are S-Tac Kiwis. They're these nylon pouches with a Kydex insert inside. They fit a variety of pistol mags. As you can see, I have 2 Desert Eagle mags in here. A bit of a stretched fit, but they will work. So I'm just gonna put some Glock mags in here just to show you. So these are Airsoft Glock mags. Just take into account, like with rigs, you want to be sure to be picking the pouches for your gun and not the other way around. So things like high kappa mags, they have a more aggressive angle to their lip than Glock mags, as you can see. So these will actually protrude a little bit too much for the S-Tacs, and they won't really click in nicely. They can actually fall out sometimes if you don't mod the bottom of the Kydex. So be sure to keep that in mind when you're choosing pistol mag pouches. My rifle mag pouches are going to be these G-Code Scorpions over here. These are the soft Scorpions in green. They're fantastic. My favorite pouches so far for belt pouches. I've been using these for a few years already. And I like them because just like my rig, if you saw that video, it can fit a variety of different platforms, which is my primary reason for going with them over something like an S-Tac mag pouch, which a lot of our staff uses. So if I wanted to run my AK, this is an AK mid cap over here. I can take my M4 mid cap off, and it easily fits in no problem, and it has a lot of retention because inside is this kind of rubberized material. Probably going to do a pretty cool comparison on different mag pouches later, but this is a great pouch. I love it. It kind of has the advantages of a taco, but it doesn't fold in on itself, and it fits a variety of different mags. So in terms of how I like to set up my mags on my rig, if it's my pistol mags, I like to set them up. Imagine if this was a real gun with the bullets facing forward. So when I grab my pistol mags, I tend to kind of grab them like this and pull them out like that. That way when I reload my handgun, it's really easy to reload. For my rifle mags, I tend to like to set them up with bullets facing backwards. So this way I can get a lot of leverage on my mag, and I pull it out just like this. Some people like to run their mags like this. and that's totally fine. If they want to teacup their mag, this is called a teacup grip, but I like to beer can my mags for my belt, so I like to have a lot of leverage with my grip like that. Having an open top mag pouch also allows me to re-index my mags. So that means, like in the chest rig video, putting the mag back into the pouch when I'm done with it, if I need to perform a tactical reload. I don't like to use my dump pouch for mags, and I'm gonna go over that in a little bit. Now, kind of on my 7 o'clock, not necessarily my 6, I like to run this Tactical Tailor little roly-poly dump pouch over here. So this guy rolls up into this little pouch, and it just unclips with a buckle, and it unfolds like this. And it's pretty sizable. It has a bungee, so you can close it up for active retention, or more active retention. And the reason I keep it back here is because I don't actually use my dump pouch too much, and this might change depending on the kind of player you are. I typically don't put my discarded mags in here. I typically put them back inside my mag pouch. And the reason for that is because I don't like having a huge thing of magas over here just jiggling around. I like to make sure they're on me, so if I reorient my mags and reseat them in during spawn, or if I have a bit of downtime as a defender, I can do that much more easily than reaching into a massive things and pulling something out and not sure which one it is. Sometimes when you tack reload, you might have a magazine with ammo in it. So I want to be able to access that if I really need to. I do, however, like to use this kind of like a folding table. So I put stuff in there that I don't really need, or if I pick stuff off the ground that I need, and I want to put in there. So if I do a speed reload, typically that's going to be with a mag that's empty. I typically actually just drop that on the ground because I'm a straight savage like that. And when there's downtime, I just pick it up and put it back in the dump pouch. Also with grenades, or because I'm a ref, armbands, markers, things for sorting out the game, I put them in here just because they're easy to access and they're kind of awkwardly shaped. They don't really fit any other pouches except for that. And it's just a quick, easy access pouch for putting stuff in. The way I attach my pouches on is either with some sort of molly clip or with malice clips. I like malice clips because they're really stiff, they're hard to weave, which kind of sucks, but I don't really plan on taking these off anytime soon. So they kind of provide that rigidity that I look for in a belt setup. Now, what I actually find really interesting is Max's setup over here. It's slightly different from mine, but as you can see, it kind of has the same lineage. And he has his dump pouch in the front, which is something that I've been seeing a lot of people do more often. Because he likes to use gas mags, of course, because he uses a gas gun, and he doesn't really re-index like I do. Totally preference. However, having his dump pouch in the front allows him to discard his mag right where it's convenient versus in the back. And he explained this to me in a really cool way because some of his friends like to use dump pouches as well, but they have them in their back. For me, when I re-index my mag, I can really feel that mag kind of knocking into the pouch and going in. For a dump pouch, it's kind of voidy, and you don't really know if it's going in or not because there's no really like walls to kind of index the mag to. So what he's noticed is that a lot of people that have dump pouches in the back, when they put their mag inside, sometimes they miss the pouch and they drop it, which ends up slowing them down more than just putting it in the mag, in the dump pouch or back in the mag pouch. He puts his dump pouch in the front, so that way he always knows where it is, and to reload, it's a simple action of just sticking his mag in his dump pouch like that. Pretty cool. So, you know, there's always different setups for different kinds of manual of arms and different kinds of ways you like to run things. The most important thing, of course, is just to consider how you like to do things, and don't knock someone until you really find out how they like to run their stuff. All right, guys, so that pretty much covers most of the basic belt setup stuff I have here. Now we're gonna hit the range and we're gonna show you guys how to wear it and some drills you can practice with your belt to get proficient. All right, everybody, so now that we have showed you guys some examples of belt rigs and how to set them up, we're gonna put it on. So first things first is once you got all your pouches on, give it a bit of a shake test. Make sure nothing's falling out. You don't need to shake it super hard because if you shake it super hard, eventually you can get everything to fall out. So when I like to put this belt on, I like to start off by putting one of the buckles in the middle and kind of wrapping it around in series. I don't like to do what some people do, which is like put it like this and then wrap it on because you don't know if the middle is going to be sitting here or it might be, you know, slightly off. Or one big thing is that if you put it on like this, as you can see, not all of the Velcro is engaging, and you're gonna have only a partial engagement of the inner Velcro. So, of course, make sure your shirt is tucked in. You don't want to have your shirt over your belt because you're gonna be needing to defeat that garment when you have the belt on. I have my mic wire here, so it's gonna be a little annoying, but first make sure that that's in the middle, this, and then just kind of wrap it around like that. And what I wanna check is the Velcro engaging positively everywhere? Yep, it is. Okay, cool. I'm gonna clip it in. There you go. And now the front, you see over here, a little bit off. So move it up a bit and give it a bit of a run through with the fingers, and we're good. Now that you have this on, give it a shake test, jump around, make sure nothing's flailing out or falling out, make sure everything's good. Now we're good to go. So I'm gonna show you guys a few drills that you can do with your belt setup at home. When I'm doing drills at Siege or anywhere, I typically just like to have my belt. I don't often wear my rig because sometimes it's a bit too big and bulky. This is my rifle here. For the belt, drills are pretty simple. Most of the drills you're gonna be doing are reloads and other kind of manipulations around reloads. So for me, put that one away. I like to practice and compartmentalize my reloads. So sometimes, you know, you wanna do the cool drop thing, put it in. That's great and stuff, but drilling even the basic reloads and compartmentalizing your skills can really help you get faster. So one drill I like to practice is just starting on empty. That. One thing that you want to kind of focus on when you're doing this is being quick with it, of course, and being consistent, but also looking at parts where you can speed up or slow down. There's kind of what I like to call kind of hard limiters to how fast you can go. For example, here's the mag well. That's going to slow me down a bit, and the pouch is going to slow me down a bit. Where can I speed up is how fast my hand gets to my mag well, or to my mag, sorry. So some people, when they do their reloads, they really take their sweet time and be like, and then really speed up here. But over there, that's not really the important part because this is going to limit really how fast you can go. So one thing I like to work on is getting my hand down there, just doing stuff like that. So bam. And notice one thing I also do is I also turn my gun a little bit, so that way I have a nice line of drive. Just kind of want to keep self-correcting when you're doing these drills. Look at parts where you could slow down and speed up. So one thing you don't want to do is do really big sweeping motions because that wastes a lot of time. You want to be efficient. So this distance, you don't want to be like in the Call of Duty videos that you see from the old games, the reload would be like that. You don't want to like make a rainbow. So for gas guys, you might want to work that bolt function into your gun. I have an AEG, it doesn't really have a bolt. Something you can practice is when you take out your mag, have your thumb, you can ride it up like that. So for an AEG, I just have this teeny little mock bolt here, but you can still work it, you know? Another thing you want to work is your transitions. So again, you can compartmentalize this to just working on the draw. Pick some point on the wall or a target, and you can kind of work that in. You want to work on getting that good sight picture, so that way you know where you're shooting. Of course, you can then work on like things like transitioning from rifle to pistol. So if my rifle out like this, you can swing it out. Try that again. Slow it down a bit. So the reason I like to swing my rifle over here is because it's out of the way. If I have it down here, it's fine too, but if I need to move around, kind of can get in the way, especially if you have a 1-point sling, it's even worse. So I like to swing it all the way to the side, like that, and really get it out of the way. Also use my pistol mags ready to reload, and if it's like for some reason over here, just a quick little transition you need to do. So then you can practice your pistol reloads as well. So obviously you don't want to drop these because they're gas mags. So I have these open top pouches here for re-indexing my gas mags really easily. And the way I treat re-indexing is I kind of treat this like a second mag well. So it's not just putting my mag in here, it's also putting my mag back in. And then you can get pretty quick at that as well. And then if you really want to get a little bit more fancy, you can start layering up on these drills. So I'm going to grab that extra mag that I had. Where did I put it? In my dump pouch. Amazing. So what I'm going to be doing now is what Redback kind of refers to as an operator readiness drill. Kind of cheesy name, but it's cool because it gets you to work your kit all the way around. So in this case, what you're going to do, bring it up. You can dry fire if you want, or I'm actually going to dry fire with my rifle at these targets. So you can bring it up, dry fire, Then transition to your pistol. You can dry fire there, reload your pistol. You can fire once or you don't have to. And then you grab your rifle, and then you can fix your rifle. And that kind of really gets you to know your kit. It's a really cool looking drill, but it's great because not so useful in like an actual game, but treat drills as compartmentalizing your skills and kind of building up things like scales on a piano or doing gesture drawings if you're an artist. Or timetables for all you Asians out there. All right, from low. So that's pretty cool. Of course, you can mix and match, add some movement, do whatever you want. Just make sure, guys, when you have this belt and this cool kit, to set it up for you and to get some practice with it. Now with COVID and all that stuff going on, there's no excuse not to really practice at home, especially because you can't play in a lot of places. So by the time I see you guys back out here, you guys better be good. And I'll check you out and see you soon. Have a great one, guys, and stay safe.